Place your hands behind your hips and broaden your collarbones to the left and to the right side. And then just adjust yourself so that your legs are crossed at the very, very center of your shins. Right? Often when we take this position, we cross the legs at the ankles. And so we want to instead cross at the middle, the center of your shins. So everyone, actually you can begin by just lifting your knees upwards a little bit and move your feet further away from each other. That's it, move the feet further away, and the leg, the shin that's closest to you, push it forwards, right? Push it a little forwards. Yeah, so when you look down, the space between your legs, between your upper legs and your lower legs should be a triangle, right? Should be a triangle. If we cross at the ankles, it ends up being, I don't even know what the shape is, but it's not a triangle, right? So we can start to guess what that would be, but you're going to be crossing the legs at the center of your shin so that you have a triangle shape of space. Okay, all right. And then once again, with your hands behind you, you're going to press your hands down ever so slightly and broaden your collarbones. Like I say this a lot these days, the broadness of the collarbones out to the sides. And what this will do is it's quite, I'm not going to say effortlessly, but it's not a hard yanking, pulling of the shoulders back, but much more of a wideness, right? So broad and outwards to the side, and then press your hands down and see if you can lift yourself up a little bit taller. That's it. Okay, now without losing that length, without losing that lift and height, when you take your arms away, it's like taking away scaffolding, right? So when we take scaffolding away from a building, we hope that the building is going to stay as it is, right? So can you release now without sinking? That's it. All right, and then join your palms together and close your eyes. Now without the scaffolding, right, the building has to stay up in and of itself. So to do that, you're going to have a sense of relaxing your legs, relaxing your shoulders, but continuing to lift upwards. And whatever muscles that you may even not know that you needed to use to sit taller, to sit straighter, see if you can begin to feel that lift so that you might even feel longer and taller in the front of your body, in the sides of your body, in the back of your body. Your whole torso lifts upwards away from your legs. And now maintaining all of that length, all of that lift, we'll chant the three Oms together. Om. Now keep tall, keep lifted, and on your exhalation, release your head down, release your hands down, and then raise your head up with your eyes closed, and then from here, gently open your eyes. Okay, stretch your legs out for a moment, and we're going to stay seated for the next pose, which will be a variation of a seated pose called Badhakonasana, which means bound angle pose. So you'll need to have a block, and you're going to be taking the block and placing it between your feet, right? So it's going to, and if you need to have a support for your hands, right? So, because sometimes these blankets can be very kind of narrow, so you can take your hands onto a bolster behind you, or you can even take your hands onto the floor, but you're going to be having your feet in contact with the block, okay? And for those of you who feel that your hips are really quite high, right, sorry, not your hips, your knees are quite high, sit up on an extra blanket, right? So Sandra, if that, yeah, I would sit just on one more. I'd take a third blanket. Okay, now hands are behind or on a bolster or something. This becomes more of a finger strengthening pose after a while. But broaden your collarbones once again to the side, and make sure your block is not too far forwards, right? Make sure it's as close to the blanket as it can be. And again, if it bothers your knees, then you move it further away, right? If it bothers your hips, you move it a little further away. But with both the hips and the knees, what you can do is sit higher, right? Yeah, do you feel, Sandra? That's a huge Huge change. Yeah, that's a huge change. And so what I notice, when we're able to sit higher, it's not that the knees have to go down, eventually the knees come to the floor in this pose, but that's not one of the reasons why we do the pose. But when we're up on, you see I'm on 2 blankets, you see the height of my knees, right, in relation to my hips. But if I sit a little bit higher, you see the knees went down, right? And so what that's doing is it's giving more space for our hips to, I'm going to say, open might be a word that we could use, but I'm even going to say letting the legs release away from the spine, right? So much of our practice for years and years is figuring out, where do my legs begin? Where does my spine begin? Because this is a complicated area, right? And so I refer often to the legs as encompassing the outer area of the hip, the buttocks, the legs. This is, if you can imagine, or no, we all don't even have to imagine, right? The Barbie doll, right? When the old Barbie doll, I think it was the old Barbie doll, was made, right? The leg attached here, right? That was the leg. And so this is your leg, right? This is your leg. And anything in between that is your spine, right? So, and we don't want to spend too much time thinking about that, but just the idea of sitting on a height can give you a little bit more feeling or even understanding of what belongs to your legs and what belongs to your spine. But we're doing this actually for our feet. So you can bring your hands behind, and you may begin already to feel a stretch here in the adductor inner thigh area, but push into the block, right? Push into the block with the heel, right? With the heel, and also with the ball mounds of the feet. The toes can stay in contact with the block. They don't need to move away, but you're going to keep the ball mounds of the feet, right? The big toe and particularly the little toe side. And then also the area which we call the outer heel, which is touching the floor and the block, and the inner heel, right? So see if you can, and you can even look down at your feet and just observe your feet and keep the toes neutral, there, Shelley. Keep the toes neutral, right? It's an interesting one, is that the toes don't get to pull away from the block, right? The toes get to just be relaxed. And we have a tendency often to pull the toes away. Noelle, if you can sit higher, it would be better, but maybe you're up on a lot of stuff. So there's always that, right? Don't go too high because then you feel as if you're going to fall over. But push and push and push. Right? Badhakonasana is an important pose for all of us to do a lot. Right? So hands behind. If it feels the other way, if you're up on your maximum height and it's hard to stay lifted, you can also lean back slightly, okay? But now push into the block, and watch your feet. And you'll notice that in between the ball mounds of your feet and your heels, there's a space. There are 2 spaces actually, right? And this space is the arch of your foot, right? This space is the arch of your foot. We actually have 3 arches to the feet. And the one that you're looking at is what we call the medial arch. Keep this also pushed in, right? So the big toe mounds, little toe mounds also pushing in. So the arch that you can see is the medial arch, right? That's the biggest arch of the foot. And if you look down, you might even be able to see the mat between your arch and the block on the floor, right? Because we also have a lateral arch, and the lateral arch is the little toe side. It's a smaller arch, right? But it's definitely there, right? It's definitely there. And the other arch, I'll go into a detail later this week, but those are the arches of your feet. And Badhakonasana is one of the poses where we begin to build and strengthen the feet, right? You can stretch your heels into the block and push the ball mounds into the block, and then observe the arches of your feet. Now, the negative space, I'm calling of the arch of the foot there, can you just observe if it's the same on the right side and the left side? Right? Because that shows us a lot about how our knees will work, how our ankles will work, how our hips will work. Right? And now keep your chest lifted, so collarbones broad, right? You can feel, I can even see the difference on each side. Yeah. And keep pushing into the block until also that you can start to feel what muscles up here are being used to keep the pressure into your feet. Because I always say the feet and the hips are the other end of each other, right? And so what goes on in our feet affects our hips. What goes on in our hips affects our feet. Now, just half a minute more here. Push quite hard. And Ellen, can you get, I can't see on the right side, but the little toe sides of the feet also have to be in contact with the block. Yeah. And then can you, for the last half a minute here, determine which of your knees is higher, right? Which of your knees is higher? because I get to see it. It's kind of hard to see from where you're sitting, right? But sometimes we can observe that one knee is just a little higher than the other, and it could be something to do with which one of your feet is pressing more, right? And to go into a little bit more detail, because we could be in this pose for the whole class, we're not going to be, right? Because it's such an important pose to practice, is that you might find that one heel is pushing more than the other heel, and the opposite bull mound is pushing, right? So that you might just have to play a little bit of can you balance out all four, right? When I say all four, 2 bull mounds, 2 heels, and that can go onwards from there. And then from here, lift your chest up. So stay very tall, stay very lifted, and relax your toes. The interesting thing about relaxing our toes is how it actually relaxes our jaw, right? And relaxes our eyes, right? So relax your toes and use the heels and use the bull mounds of the feet. Okay, pushing, pushing, pushing. All right, and then from here, now go ahead and take the block away to the side. Now you get to bring the soles of the feet completely together for Badhakonasana. And if this bothers your knees, for knee people, put the block back, right? Put the block back. But now the bull mounds of the feet are touching, toes are pretty neutral, and the heels are touching. So now you can use your hands, again, either on the floor, or either on the blankets. Now push, right? Push with the heels, push with the bull mounds of the feet, and then just observe what happens with this pushing, right? What happens with this pushing? I'm seeing the knees are releasing slightly away, right? And you may feel a bit of a stretch here, right? In the inner edges of the legs, inner thighs. And then you also might feel some of this muscle in the thighs, in the outer thighs, and in the hips starting to really engage. But now maximum lift to your chest, right? Maximum lift to your chest. And now those of you who are working with knee issues and hip issues, you get to stay on the blanket. But those of you can go a little bit lower, and Noel, you're going to stay up on that. Yeah, you're going to stay up on that height. Now then you can come off the blanket height, right? If you're working with knee issues, hip issues, stay on the height, but otherwise don't move your heels, but move yourself off. Don't move your heels, right? Keep the heels where they are. And this is an instruction from the great Gita Iyengar. Sit on your heels, right? Sit on your heels. I can't do it, but I like the idea of that, right? Because we realize that, we're actually working to not only connect what our feet do with what our hips do, right? But that they work really well together, right? So press your heels into each other, bull mounds into each other, and now push forward. See if you can sit on your heels, right? Sit on your heels. Get the buttocks and the thighs as close to your heels as possible, and then lift your chest up. All right, and then from here, you can bring yourself up and now bring the legs together, stretch your legs out. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of footwork today. And so you can come on up and make sure that you have a couple of blocks with you, a couple of blocks. And you can place your blocks sort of on either side like this, not very wide apart. And for the meantime, you're only going to be using one block. I'm going to turn to the side to see those of you in the studio can stay exactly where you are. Right? So you're going to have the blocks maybe 8 inches apart, and you get to stand on your blocks like this, right? So you're going to blocks some maybe 8 inches apart, and then everybody just go ahead and stand up on your blocks. Yeah. Now, Martha, if this feels too hard, then we'll get you some other blocks, but I think this should be good. Okay, so hands can be on your hips. Hands can be on your hips. All right, now we're going to adjust what we're going to do with our feet, rather like Badhakonasana, and you're going to exaggerate the movement to the outer edges of your feet, right? So everybody lift the big toe sides of the feet up, right? Lift the big toe sides, so that would be the inner heels, the bull mounds of the feet. Excuse me, the inner heels, the big toe mounds of the feet. And now push down, just like you did in Badhakonasana, with the little toes, the little toe mounds, and the outside edges of your heels, right? The outside edges of your heels. Right, and now feel what that does to the parts of your legs that are responding to that, right? So you're pressing into the outside edges of your feet. Okay, and now from here, take your arms up, right? Reach the arms up and press the outside edges of your feet down. Now straighten your arms and reach up and see, can you even hook your thumbs and pull up a little bit higher? Right, keeping the outside edges of your feet down, push them down and reach up, arms straight. And now switch the hook of your thumbs and pull upwards. That's it, outer edges of the feet downwards. Keep breathing, that's it, outer edges of the feet downwards. Okay, and then from here, exhale, release and bring your arms down. Now press the outside edges of your feet down firmly, and then peel the inside edges of your feet down. But don't lose the outside edge, right? So that the outer edges of our feet are almost a straight line, right? It's a very clear line, the outer edges of our feet. And so we want to keep the outer feet very firm, right? Very firmly pressed down. And then, of course, the other parts of the feet have to also make contact. So we're going to do this, and this is where it gets a little bit of a balancing act. You're going to move your feet closer to each other so that the big toe sides of your feet are in fact hanging off the blocks, right? So the big toe sides of the feet are off the blocks. Now, if you go too far, the block may, you may just lose the block. We'll see if we can get closer to that edge, but not right away. Okay, so now, once again, press into the outside edges of the feet, right? And then take your arms forwards now, interlace your fingers, turn your palms, reach up to bound finger pose. Now, the outer edges of the feet, again, the outer heels have to come down, right? The outer heels have to come down. Now, with your big toes, don't pull them down towards the floor. See if you can get them to move closer to each other, right? The big toes don't have to lift. Again, they move closer to each other, right? But keep the outside edges of your heels down, outside edges of the feet down. Yes, do you feel what's going on today in your feet? Yeah, that's it, that's it. And then switch the interlace of your fingers and then pull upwards and keep the outside edges of your feet down. And Julia, instead of dropping the big toes towards the floor, see if you can get them to touch each other. See if you can get them to meet across the channel between your blocks, right? Like long lost friends. Can you move your big toes closer to each other, keeping the outside edges of the feet down? All right, and then from here, exhale and release and come on out. Now you can either step off your blocks and take a break for a moment, or you can stay, you can walk your feet firmly onto the blocks. So this outer edge of our foot is an important part to be to be aware of. And particularly if you can kind of look down at your own outer heel and ankle, and you want to see that that line there is completely vertical, right? From the outer heel to the outer ankle, completely vertical. Many of you know I used to study with Mary Dunn, and she's certainly not the only person to have used this image, because she says as we age, what happens is we drop our arches and roll to the inner edges of our feet. And she says this looks like grilled cheese, right? She says it looks like grilled cheese, like there's a kind of an oozing out, right? And this is a collapse of the foot, really, right? So we want to press the outer edges of the heels down so there's no oozing out, right? There's no grilled cheese, right? So if I can come, I know some of you are in camera here. So this is I'm pushing the outer edge of the heel down, so this line is vertical, right? So we don't want to, again, drop and roll to the inner edge of the foot. So we want to keep that outer edge very, very firm. So you're going to dance around this last time. We're going to do it one more time and see how strong are your outer feet. Can you get so that maybe only the fourth and fifth toes are on the blocks and your outer heels, right? Because if I drop too much, this is going to happen. I mean, you don't go very far, but you want to see, can you work to examine, right, the outer edges of your feet and push them down, right? Really anchor them downwards into the blocks. And then you'll observe there's kind of a different feeling in how your legs are working, okay? And then of course we'll take the arms up. But be careful here, right? Because particularly, hopefully you've got two blocks that are the same height. If you haven't, don't do this because it's not worth it, right? Unless you know you have one leg longer than the other and so on and so on. Okay, so outer edges of the feet down. As I look around, the only thing I'm looking at is the vertical line between your outer heels and your outer ankles. Because if that line is vertical, what it means is that your arches are supporting your feet, right? The arches are supporting your feet. And then the big toes don't get to go up, they get to go towards each other, right? So can you dance as much as you can off the block, bringing the feet as close together as you can. And then see if you can get your big toes to touch. They're not going to touch. But see if you can get the big toes closer and closer towards each other. They don't have to go up, they don't have to go down, they have to go closer. All right, now take your arms forwards once again, interlace your fingers and stretch your arms up. So as I'm looking around here, right, I'm seeing a lot of very straight, stable legs, not only straight and stable, but interestingly also vertical, And it's a strange thing that we think our legs are vertical, but for a lot of the time, the legs are not. They either hang forwards or they hang backwards, right? So now switch the interlace of your fingers and push up. And now anchor into the outside edges of your feet, right? There, right? So we can almost feel that the arches of the feet, you won't feel your arches necessarily, but you may feel that there is a lift coming from the ground upwards. And now exhale, release and bring your arms down. Release and bring your arms down. And now step off the blocks and just observe where you are now with your understanding of the grilled cheese, right? That the cheese is not oozing out in your outer ankles, because that's a lot of energy to lose in the body, right? And so connect down to the outside edges of your feet. Toes don't get to lift up. All right, one more foot position, one more foot position. This time you only need one block, and we're not going to stand on it. You're going to stand with the feet either side of the block, right? So you've got the block on the flattest position, and then you're going to bring the inside edges of your feet down, right? And the inside edges of the feet, the big toe mounds, the big toes, the heels, are going to be as close to the block as they can be, right? As close to the block as they can be. All right, so now press again into the outside edges of your feet, right? The outer heels and the little toes, almost as though you feel again that this big toe area is almost lifting, right? Now anchor down into the outside edges, and then can you slide the big toe sides of the feet to the floor, right? Slide the big toe sides of the feet down the block towards the floor. Because essentially what we're trying to do is get an evenness here and here, right? And Mr. Iyengar would often talk about the four corners of the feet, inner, outer, front, back, like the four wheels of a car, right? And we know what happens when a car has one tire that's worn out, right? It changes the functionality of the vehicle. So we want to see, can you press the outer feet down, and also keeping that, slide the big toes down? Yes, right. Okay. How are we doing? Are we feeling our feet stable? Now, the last part of this, the inner edges of your ankle bones, right? The inner edges of your ankle bones, which is touching the block or at least close to the block, without disturbing your feet. Can you have a sense of those inner ankle bones going up? Yes, so they might even leave the sides of the block just a tiny little bit. So the big toe sides of the feet are down, the outer edges of the feet are down, and the inner ankles are lifting upwards towards your chest, right? Lifting upwards towards your chest. Martha, this is your work, right? Because what I'm seeing now is the ankles are level, right? The ankles are level. When I say the ankles are level, these two bones, inner and outer ankles, right? These are actually your shin bones, right? That they are balanced now. And like the ankle joints, rather like the wrist joints, are like a tunnel of communication, right? We want to keep that tunnel flowing from the feet to the hips, right? From the feet to the hips. So now last arm position, like left arm position, take your arms out, turn the palms to the face of the ceiling, and now reach your arms up. Now see if you can get your palms to touch. Let's see if you can get your palms to touch. Now draw your elbows in and go higher. Now it's a strange connection, but can you lift your ankle bones to lift your arms? Right, press down into the outside edges of the feet. So again, there's no oozing out, grilled cheese. And the big toe sides of the feet are also down against the block, but the ankles are helping to lift your arms up. And now exhale and bring your arms down. Don't disturb your feet, and go up and down with your arms 6 times or 8 times, however many, and see, can you do this without disturbing your feet, right? Toes get to relax. Toes don't lift the toes, right? Yes, that's it. Because if we only ever lift our toes, and it's strange enough, a lot of women do this, but I've seen a few men do it too, but mainly it's a women thing, is that we end up overworking the big toe mound, and it can get, bunions, and also it can just get overstretched, right? The tendons there can get overworked. So keep your toes down, right? And now arms up and down without disturbing your feet, right? And it's interesting, when we use our feet, a lot of us use our fingers, right? So see if you can keep your arms straight. That's it. Relax your fingers, relax your toes. Very stable, right? Very stable feet. Arms out and up. That's it. And now from here, exhale, release, and come down. So now step away from your block and just examine. You don't even have to look down, but maybe you can just feel the feet, right? This is the foundation. so that you can feel balanced on these four corners of the feet. All right, so you're not rolling in, ankles lifted, arches lifted, and no grilled cheese at the outer ankles. Right, so press down through the outside edges of the feet. All right, so now how does this relate to some of our standing poses we're going to do? You're going to take a couple of blocks and place them either side. Let's have those of you in the studio line your mats along the floorboards, right, along the floorboards. Turn your mats this way so that's just easier for me to see and for the lefts and rights to be a little more congruous. Okay, and then with your feet together, bring your hands to your hips. We're not going to do any stepping or jumping just yet. Just bring your hands to your hips. All right, now slightly bend your legs, and now just raise your heels a little off the floor, right? Raise the heels and then just bring them down, right? So raise the heels up and then bring them down, keeping your feet together. Raise the heels and then bring them down, and then raise the heels. And when you raise your heels, keep the legs bent and see that you don't separate your ankles, right? Keep the ankles together. Right, pull your ankles together, keep them together. Yes, do you see how they want to just roll out, right? So you want to keep your ankles together, legs bent, right? Rolling forwards, rolling down, rolling forwards, rolling down. So this is the position we use when we jump, right? When we jump. So, and I know some of you are not jumping the feet apart, and that's fine. If you're not jumping, what you have to do today is heel toe or toe heel, right? Your feet further to the side, go that way. But those of you who are jumpers, right? Again, to jump, the hands come to the chest. Now you have to raise your heels up, right? Be a little bouncy on the bull mounds, and then jump. And then you can stretch your heels out, okay? That's it. Let's do that again. So now bend the legs and now jump together. All right, and now bend the legs, lift the heels, and jump to the side. That's it, stretching apart. So we land on the bull mounds and stretch the heels away. Again, steppers, you're doing a lot of ankle work, right? And then from here, bend again, and now jump together. And now one more time before we actually begin what we're going to do, right? Okay, bend, and now jump to the side. Okay, now take the feet wide, bring your hands now down to your hips. Now look at your feet and see that they're not turned outwards, but they're turned forwards. They're turned forwards. And now we're going to turn to the right side for side angle pose. So turn your left foot in, bend the right leg, and turn to the right side. Okay, now on your exhalation, bend your right leg, right? Bend the right leg. Left leg stays straight. And now exhale, bring your hand down today onto the high block. And lean onto the block with your right hand. Straighten your left leg. Now take your top arm up and stretch it over by your ear. Now straighten your back leg. And now pull from your top arm. Inhale and come up. Same side, right? Inhale, come up. So now exhale and bend your right leg. Now take another exhalation. Bring your hand down. And now reach over. That's it, straight arm, straight leg, and now pull from your left arm, inhale, and come on all the way up. And now side two, so turn your right foot in, bend the left leg, turn the left leg out to the left side. That's it, back foot turns slightly closer in, that's it. And now exhale, bend, right? Bend your left leg, and then reach over, bring your hand down onto the block. And then reach your top arm now up and over by your ear, up and over by your ear. Okay, and then inhale and come on all the way up. And now exhale again, bend your left leg, bend the left leg. And now bring the hand down. So a lot of moving in these poses requires stability down in our feet. Then reach the top arm over, that's it. And then from here, pull now from your top arm, inhale and come on up. Now keep the feet wide, turn the feet forwards. Okay, and now turn to your first side. So left foot in, bend the right leg, turn it to the right side. Now take a look at your own right foot as you bend your leg. So we want the right foot to be as close to the poses we just did, right? The standing Tadasana that we just did. So exhale and bend the leg, right? And can you even things out, right? On the four corners of your feet. So the outer edges of your feet have to press down. Again, no grilled cheese at your outer heel. And then the inner side of your ankle bone has to lift up, right? So that the arch has to lift. Yeah, that's it. So that when you bend, your ankle is level, front and back. Okay, and then from here, inhale and come on all the way up. Let's do that again. So exhale and bend. As you bend, right, can you maintain a balanced foot, a balanced ankle? Again, the toes don't need to lift. Can you keep down, press down into the outer edge of the foot, inner edge of the foot, and lift the ankle up. Now bring your hand down onto the block. Bring the hand down onto the block. That's it. And now stable front foot, right? Top arm now can come up and over by your ear. And now from here, pull from your top arm. Now inhale and come on all the way up. And now turn to your second side, right foot in, left leg out. So all of the footwork we do in our practice is designed, the standing work is designed to give more strength and range of motion to the lowest parts of the body, right? Feet and ankles. So now exhale and bend your left leg. And now watch how you bend the leg. We know how to bend a leg. We can bend at the knee, right? There are many ways to bend a leg. But can you bend today with an awareness of your foot? So Bev, yeah, watch out, watch out. Can you see how the inner left ankle rolls, right? It rolls down. So we want to keep weight on the outside edge of the foot, like that Tadasana we did. And then from here, inhale, come up. Okay, now look again. Let's go a little wider in your pose. So longer, excuse me. Take your right foot further away. And now as you bend the leg, can you see now, how do you bend your leg? Because where you place the weight on your feet will affect your knee, your ankle, and your hip, and your back, and a lot of other stuff, right? So then when you bring your hand now down onto the block, right, onto the high block today, you can stretch your top arm now up and over, but live in your left foot for now, right? Live in your left foot. So that the inner ankle, there you can feel how this is affecting your hip quite a lot here, right? So the big toe mound can extend and the toes can relax and the inner ankle bone has to lift. Yeah, that's it. Now lift the arch of your left foot up, whatever that means to you. And now lift from the arch to bring yourself up and out of the pose. That's it. Okay, and then turn your feet and step or jump your legs together. You're going to take the blocks now and put them, I'm going to say in front, but we're going to turn them to the medium height, okay? So your blocks will be in front, and when you bend the leg, it's not quite like the Tadasana, but I'm just going to show from two angles here. I'm positioning my foot next to the block, right? I'm positioning my foot next to the block. I'm showing two directions here. So that when I bend this front leg, right? When I bend this front leg, I have to be as close to that Tadasana that we did with the block between the feet, right? That standing pose. So as I bend, look what I'm just going to show. If I bend and I roll off the outer edge of my foot, right? So that means the grilled cheese appears again. And I drop my arch and my ankle. Look what it's going to do to the block. Do you see it? It pushed the block. But look what it did to my knee. Right now, my inner knee is taking the entire weight of my spine, right? And my hip is not helping because it can't, because it's not in the right place. It's pushing back. And so there are many reasons to keep working, right? To keep this integrity, right? The lift of the arch, the lift of the ankle, and the extension into the outside edge of the foot, okay? So when you bend the leg, you're going to see, I don't want to touch the block with my inner ankle, right? So I keep lifting it up. So there's a direct lift here, right? And then, strangely today, you can bring your hand to the inside edge and then top arm comes up and over. The trickiest thing is coming out because you sort of got a block in a way and it'll probably fall over anyway, right? So have the block on the medium height now. So a lower position and step heel toe. Everyone can heel toe the feet apart now because jumping with the blocks in this position can be a little risky. Okay, everyone bring the feet together. So heel toe, right? Heel toe. The reason being is it's even. Right? It's even because some of us have a tendency when we take the feet apart to take it 3 feet to one side and 10 inches to the other side, right? That's not so good for your hips. So this is more even, right? So go heel toe and then turn your left foot in, right leg out. If the block's not in the position, just move it there. Okay, and then straighten your legs. Hands can be on the hips because you're watching. Now, as you bend your right leg, can you keep the integrity of your Tadasana foot, right? So don't let the inner ankle bone touch the block, right? Not by lifting the foot up, not even by lifting the toes. Press down into the outside edge of the foot. Big toe mound is down, big toe is down, ankle is lifting. And then bring your hand now down onto the block. Right hand, that's it, left hand on your left hip. And then just see what happens when you go down into the pose. Emily, go a little longer, scoot your left leg back. That's it. Now press down and lift up, right? So lift up, zip up from your ankle to your knee. inner ankle to inner knee, and then straighten your left leg and reach your top arm now up and over, and pull yourself up and out of the pose from there without dropping into the block. But even coming out, we don't want to drop into the block, right? Because it's all, the feet are the foundation, and what our feet do will affect everything, right? Everything else. So let's take the other side. Again, it's a little awkward, right, with the block, but you'll place the block to the inside edge of your left foot. Right foot slightly turns in, and then as you bend the leg, make sure everyone has a wide enough position back to front. Yep, so there's at least 4 feet between your left foot and your right foot. And now as you bend the leg, right, as you bend the leg, can you see, okay, what happens when I bend my leg? Right? It's not that you're only on the outside edge of the foot. The big toe side is down, the big toe is down. Now bend the leg and see that you don't hit the block, right? Ankle skims, it can skim, but it can't push, right? And you'll notice what's going on in your hip to do this, right? Quite a lot is going on in your hip. And then when you're ready, you can bring your hand down onto the block, but again, resist dropping into the block. Eventually, back leg straightens, top arm comes up and over, top arm comes up and over. That's it. Now, when you come out, don't drop into the block with your front foot. So keep that pushed down. That's it. Into the floor, lift the ankle, and then inhale and come on all the way up. All right. Different way of bending, right? Different way of bending. So now, again, the block's a little awkward. So go ahead and kind of move your block. And then you can either step or jump or heel toe your feet back together again, right? Back together again. So we're going to just take a moment in Tadasana. We did with blocks, we did in different ways. But the classic position of Tadasana is one that we never use. In fact, this is the person who brought this pose into our lives. And he says that everything you can learn about yoga can be taught in this pose. But no one would come to class because we consider it to be, I did for many years, not very interesting. Right? Because how hard is it to stand straight on our feet? And what makes this pose different is the feet are together, right? Most of us in daily life don't stand with our feet together. So this one demands that. So I'm going to have you all bend the knees just a little and move your knees slightly apart and glue the inner edges of your heels together. Shelley, you know how to take your little foam block, right, between your knees. If you're slightly knock-kneed, this is not going to be for you, right? You need to have a block between your knees. And I'll show that in a minute. But you're going to take the inner edges of your heels together and the inner edges of your big toes together. So all of that area comes together. Okay, now don't lose that and straighten your legs. It's a very different pose, right? And you may notice more than anything how you're almost, well, I sometimes feel as if I'm floating because the arches of the feet have to lift so much to get anywhere close to this. And the outer edges of the feet have to be very clear. And then you can relax your toes, right? So the ball mounds of the feet can be spread onto the floor, the toes get to relax. Let's just do it once again. And for those of you with knock knees, again, this is not an easy position, but everyone slightly bend the legs. And I don't know, Shelley, if you have a smaller block, but even a rolled up sticky mat will do. But that's what you would do, right? You would put a block between your knees. If you're slightly knock knees, bring your feet as close together, right, as you can, but they won't be together. But you need to have some kind of reference point up into the upper legs, okay? All right, so again, feet glued together, right, glued together. That's it, glued together. And then from here, now you can notice, right, the front of the foot becomes very wide and the heels become very stable, almost very narrow. Okay, and now bring your arms to the side, turn your palms, reach your arms up. And now again, can you take your palms all the way together and lock your elbows and pull up from the arches of your feet? Right? And Gita Iyengar calls this pose tree pose. Try not to hook your thumbs, right? Yeah, no thumb hooking, right? Just use the strength of your arms to lift up. And now inner heels together, big toe mounds down, that's it. And now lift your arches, lift your inner ankle bones to your fingertips. Right? Can you connect those parts? And breathe and breathe. All right, now on your exhalation, release and bring your arms all the way down, right? Release, bring your arms all the way down. Okay. So blocks, once again, we're going to take the blocks this time onto the high side, and we're going to take triangle pose. So bring your feet together, and you either do the heel toe or you do the jump, right? Heel toe or the jump. All right, so bring your hands to your chest and now feet all the way together. Remember that Tadasana. So can you bring the feet together? Even closer, even closer. That's it. Okay, and then from here, step or jump. Beautiful. Okay, now arms out to the side, right? Legs out to the side. Now your left foot turns in, keep the heel where it is and see if you can spin the foot in. That's it, and bend the right leg and turn the right leg out to the side. Now this time legs are straight, completely straight. And now go over to your right side. Bring the hand down onto the block today. And now take your top arm upwards towards the ceiling. That's it. Now straighten your arms and straighten your legs. And now to come up, pull from your left arm. Inhale, reach up. Now keep the arms to the side and turn to your second side. So right foot turns in, bend the left leg, and turn the left leg to the side. And now go ahead and straighten your legs and bend over your left leg. I bend over the left leg, keeping the legs straight. That's it. Now straighten your arms, straighten your legs. Arms straight, legs straight. Okay, now pull from your right arm, inhale, and come on all the way up. And now turn the feet and bring the hands to turn the feet forwards, bring the hands to the hips. Take your first side again. So left foot turns in. Again, when you turn the back foot in, don't move the heel out, right? Instead, keep the heel where it is and turn the front of the foot slightly closer in. So just keep that in mind, just a little bit more than Martha. Yes, like that. Okay. And then bend the right leg, turn it to the side. All right, now hands down. Just take a study now of your back foot, right? How close is your back foot to this pose, right? To Tadasana. Because the instruction is in every standing pose, we have to get our feet as close as we can to this pose. And what does he mean by this pose? That we have even weight on our feet, on the inside, on the outside, right? So with your attention to your back foot, is there as much weight on the outside edge of your foot as the inside edge? It's a lot. You are very wide, so go a little narrower. That's it. Now, can you bring weight to the outside edge of your back foot? Right, can you bring weight to the outside edge of the back foot from the little toe all the way to the heel? And now to do that, can you lift, not the heel, can you lift the arch? Yeah, can you lift the inner ankle bone, right? Remember all that work that we did? The big toe doesn't get to lift, that gets to relax. The toes don't get to chill out. Now keep the outer edge of the foot down. Now you can take your arms to the side. Now squash my finger here. Keep pushing into my finger. And now exhale and go over to the side. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. So I can't move my finger. Keep going. Keep going. Yes, like that, right? Now press into the outside edge of the foot, right? Outside edge of the foot, of your back foot, of your left foot. And stretch your left arm up. Okay, and then from here, keep reaching into the outside edge of your left foot. You have some tools, right? You can lift your ankle. You can lift your arch. You can look at the clock, right? There are all kinds of ways, right? But keep the weight on the outside edge of the foot. And now pull from your top arm now. Inhale, come on all the way up. All right. And turn, right? And the reason why I turn the feet forwards when I'm taking you a little longer in that is because there's communication that needs to happen. This is a long way. It's a long way to go, right? So turn your back foot in, turn your front leg out, right? Turn the front leg out. This is almost our last standing pose, right? Almost our last standing pose. Okay, so from here, again, just observe, right? Observe. Where is the weight on your back foot? Right? Keep the heel where it is. If you haven't turned your back foot in, do that, but don't move from the front of the foot, right? Keep the heel grounded. All right, and then observe, because things will only get more intense when you bend over your left leg. Is there as much weight on the outside edge of the foot, right, as the inside edge? And you can lift your arch, you can lift the ankle bone of the back foot, right? So be very stable, and then when you bend over your left leg, see that you don't change, right? Don't change what's going on in your back foot. Exhale and go over. Exhale and go over. Exhale and reach over. Now squash my finger there. Yes, that's it. Now relax this down. Just a few more breaths. Live in your right foot. Arch rising, foot down. You're doing it from your ankle. Now just do it with your heel. Push back, push back. I know, right? 29 bones, 33 joints. One of the most marvelous creations ever is the human foot. All right, and now pull from your top arm. Now inhale and come on all the way up. And turn your feet and bring the legs together. Okay. So you're going to take your blocks and place them on the highest side, and you folks can just mirror me, put them towards the wall there. And we're going to take Uttanasana, right? Standing forward bend. And you'll do this with your feet as wide as your hips. Now you can go higher. If these blocks are not high enough for your back, right? If you feel any pain in your back, then you have to go higher. You just would go on a chair, right? But with your feet apart, everyone go ahead and bend forwards and place your hands now down onto the blocks. And now you can have a good look at your feet. Now, can you do the Tadasana foot in both of your feet now? Which means that there's no grilled cheese from the outer ankles to the outer heels, like two vertical lines, a bit more. And particularly, we work on the heels, right? Because that's where the first grilled cheese begins, in the heel side. Now to pull down, your left foot is so different from your right. Yes, so different from the right. Okay, there's just more grilled cheese on the left side, right? And it's a really interesting image because we can often feel that. We can often even see it, right? So now legs are straight, and now move to the outside edges of your feet. Okay, and now lift your inner ankle bones up and spread the rest of your foot down, right? So the ball mound gets to go down and the ankle gets to lift up. Right. And the feet take this much study, but I always say it's worth it, right? Because if this isn't working, then everything else on top has to work so much harder, right? And like any crafts person who builds arches, right? They know that the more weight you put on a well-built arch, the stronger it gets, right? Any craftsperson, if they built an arch, at the moment you laid anything on top of it, it would collapse. You would never hire them again, right? So the human arch is the same, but we have to work quite hard to keep it healthy, right? And sometimes we put arch supports underneath it, and they can be valid if the arch is beginning to collapse, but we all have that muscle strength in our feet to be able to do it ourselves. So now, keeping your hands on the blocks, I'm going to have you lean back with your hips, lean back with your thighs, and go as far as you can without lifting your toes up, right? Without lifting the ball mounds of the feet up. And it becomes a bit of a balance, right? So lean backwards, keep going back, and yeah. Feet are slightly apart. It's harder to do this with the feet together, right? Okay, and then from here, come on forwards. And bring your hands to your hips and come on up. We're doing, again, this Uttanasana, the standing forward to bend today, from the perspective of our feet, right? And so when we're here, I don't know about you, but when I go back a little further, the first thing that reacts is the toes lift. But you'll find that that's not going to help with your balance. So you're going to see, can I keep going back? Can I keep going back? Can I keep going back? And you'll notice that obviously the front of your foot will get longer, but some of this stability in your heels, in the ball mounds and the lift of the arches may start to become clearer. And then you can see, can I balance, right? Can I maybe just lean back and stretch the arms a little forwards? Right? Does that make sense? And then, okay, now this is where it's most interesting. Can I keep all of what I feel here when I come up and stand, right? So that there is again, kind of a soft stability in our feet. We're not leaning onto the ball mounds or only on our heels, okay? So one more time, maybe come forward, start off with your hands on a chair or on a block or on something that gives you support. All right, feet are at least as wide as your hips. And now lean back. Lean back. Emily, you're okay? Okay, So lean back, lean back, lean back, until if you went another 1/4 of an inch, you would end up sitting down, but you don't want to go that far, okay? All right, now the toes don't get to lift, right? The toes get to stay where they are. And then you can reach your arms a little forwards. Legs are straight, legs are straight. So straighten your legs. Yeah, that's it. So you're leaning back with your knees, with your thighs, with your hips. Now, do you feel the ball mounts of your feet spread on the floor? You feel your heels down, and you may feel the arches of your feet are not on the floor, right? So then you want to keep that and bring your hands to your hips. And now don't disturb your feet, and just bring yourself up to stand without leaning forwards onto the ball mounds or only back on your heels. Can you be even, equal on both? All right. Okay. Now, do you feel, is there a little bit of understanding now, a little bit more in the actions of the feet? Okay. So when we come into, we're doing, I never quite tell the truth about not doing more standing poses, because they are so important. Because in a moment, when you take the legs to the ceiling, we're going to go upside down in a minute, you have no floor, right? So the feet have no frame of reference. So what we're going to do is to come into our triangle pose. A moment ago, I had you do this, right? Where the thighs were at an angle. And in triangle pose, interestingly, the front thigh is at a very similar angle. So I'm going to show from here, actually. So the block is where it is, and I've got my foot, my Tadasana foot, and then all I'm going to do is press down, don't disturb anything. Tadasana. And then I get to move back, and then I get to move back, and then I get to move back. So now I don't get to disturb my front foot. And arguably the front foot in triangle pose is one of the most complex foot positions, because often we just now roll, right? We just sickle out to the side. So have your feet closer together. You can have your hand on a block, or you can have your hand even on a chair. But you're going to start with the feet and maybe 2 feet apart. Find your Tadasana foot, and then you'll slowly, so those of you here, you'll slowly walk your left leg further away without disturbing this leg, right? Without disturbing this foot, your triangle-shaped foot, right? Your Tadasana in triangle pose. And go slowly, right? So right foot is facing the right, left foot is fairly close in, right? Fairly close in. And then slowly go back and see, can you keep your Tadasana foot? Like, can you keep the Tadasana foot on the right foot? And then, of course, we already did the left, right? So then you can add the left. Once you get back there, you can add your left foot. Now, from here, keep the heel where it is. Turn the toes closer to you. Turn the front of the foot closer, yeah. All right, and hand can come onto the block, or if you need to go higher, it can go onto your shin or your ankle. And now left hand can be on your left hip or upwards towards the ceiling. If you find that your right leg is bent, it's fine today, right? But study, yeah, beautiful, right? Study the foot. Study your foot. So the toes don't get to lift up, right? Those reactive toes get to rest. And Matab, stretch your top arm up to the fingertips more, right? So yes, there we go. And now pull from your top arm. Now inhale, come on all the way up. All right, turn the feet. Bring the legs again, heel toe the feet closer together. Right, really the last standing pose. We'll do the left side. Did you feel your triangle foot though? The triangle pose foot? It's a different foot than the ones we've been doing. Because up till now, we've been doing, I'm going to call this, what this is called dorsiflexion, right? So that when we're bending here, when the ankle and the foot are at this angle. But this is different, right? This is where we have a stretch to the front of the ankle, right? Achilles contracts. It's a different position. So let's take the left foot. And again, left foot faces the left. Start off with a very narrow, hardly even call it triangle pose, right? So then bring your hand down, and your left foot is a Tadasana foot. And then you say, okay, how far back? Because eventually the right foot is 4.5 feet away from the left foot. But we want to see, again, that the toes don't react, right? The toes stay down. And that you want to keep the integrity and balance. You're not rolling only to the outside edge of this foot. Up until now, we've been said outside edge of the foot, outside edge of the foot. But this is a different position, right? Because in our 29 bones in our feet, each bone can articulate with and also independently of the others, which means that the potential of movement in our feet is I don't even know what that would be, right? 29 times 29, I don't know. Just, we can learn to count that, right? A lot, right? You can learn to paint with your feet. Yeah, it's true. When you see those people who cannot use their hands, their feet are astonishing, right? Now, can you work your back foot the same way as we did before? The back foot is in what we call dorsiflexion, right? That's a more normal position. The front foot is not, right? We often get cramps in the shins and things like that, right? Okay, now press into the block, inhale, and come on all the way up. And now turn your feet, right? Turn the feet and heel toe your feet closer together, or you can jump, right? Whichever is easier for you. All right. So now we're going to, I'm going to say rest our feet, but the feet never really get a rest. They just get a sort of a rest. So this is Virasana, right? Which is, again, one of the great poses for the feet. And this is where our ankles are stretched, like triangle pose. This is what we call plantar flexion. And so those of you in the studio, you can do any direction, right? But the way that we're going to sit up on minimally a block, and the action is that the thighs are parallel to each other, and that you bring your fingers to the very backs of your knees and move the outside edges of your knees, move that calf flesh out, right, as you sit down, because it just gives much more space to the backs of the knees. And other than, yeah, I think it's Shelley, you'll know what support to take, right? If it bothers your knees, the basic adjustment is to sit higher, right? To sit higher. Lee, is there any way you could use that support to be able to touch your feet? Can you touch your feet under those blankets easily? Yeah, you can. Okay, that's fine. You just need to be able to touch your feet. Okay, and now the other place that is complicated in Virasana is the fronts of the ankles, right? Now the feet are not touching the block. So everyone take your feet a little away from the block, right? Just a little bit away from the block. So they're not touching, okay. And then look at your right foot, look at your left foot, and make sure that your toes, the toes themselves, are pointing directly away from you, right? They're not turned in or turned out, although there are variations where we do that, right? Yeah. And then look at your little toes and see, can you get your little toes and the little toe mounds to touch the floor? Right? Can you get the little toes to touch the floor? And the answer for almost all of us, not everyone though, because your left one is down, right, is that it's a little complicated, that the inside edge of the foot is closer to the floor than the outside edge. Right? So what you're going to do is take your thumbs, right? Take your thumbs, and you're going to bring your thumbs to your inner heels, right? To the inside edges of your heels. So you see, I can holding my foot here. My thumb is on the inner heel, right? Thumbs on the inner heels. If you're really high, you'll have to bend forwards to do this. Okay? Not on your ankles, right? You're going to take your thumbs directly onto the inner edges of your heels, right? Right here, the inner edges of the heels. And then you pull out quite hard. Now, does this help you get your little toes down? Right? Little toes come down, inner heels move up and slightly out. Okay. Now keep doing that with your thumbs and use your forefingers on the outer ankle bones that I was referring to right at the beginning today and push in. Move your inner heels out and push your outer ankles in, right? So you're moving this back part of your foot. Heels go out, ankles go in. Right? Heels go out, ankles go in. And do this so that the broad ball mound of your foot gets to open, and also this expansive middle arch, right? The medial line of the arch gets to build. This is the pose we give for folks with heel spurs, plantar fasciitis, any of these kinds of arch issues, right? Because Virasana will build your arches. And it's a really remarkable pose to practice. Okay, now can you keep that? Let go of your feet, right? Let go of your feet. And now, those of you who have shoulder issues, what you're going to do is take your hands forward and stretch your arms up. But otherwise, Don't reach around and get a belt, but the rest of you will do Gomukhasana. So your left arm will go down, the right arm will go up, and you'll bend your elbows. And if you can't reach your hands, don't worry about it, right? But you just stretch your fingers towards each other, or you hold on to your fingers, okay? And if that's too much for your shoulders, then you take this bound finger pose and stretch your arms up, okay? Now, those of you who've got the, this is cow face pose, right? Which means that the right elbow goes up and the left elbow goes down. And Martha, interlace your fingers. That's it. I know, but this is how we keep them opening. I know. You just do it as much as you can because it's all good. It's all good. All right, and now switch either the interlace of your fingers or switch your arms, because we know for any kind of arthritic condition that we just have to keep going. Right? We just have to keep going, have to keep moving. Okay, and now stretch up. That's it. Left elbow up, right elbow down if you're using Gomukhasana. Otherwise, those of you in the bound finger pose, stretch into your palms. Stretch into your palms. Good, we've got time. All right, and then from here, release your arms now. Release your arms. And now to come out of Virasana, you'll get to come forwards and move your props away to the side. And there are two ways to come out of this, right? The first is if you're working with knee issues, you can just roll your feet to one side or the other side and roll onto your hips. But if you can, cross your ankles, right? Cross your ankles and roll over your ankles and feet, right? Roll over your ankles and feet. Not to be done if you've got knee issues. You would just bring your feet to one side because it's really, again, helpful for the feet and the ankles, right? To have all of this. Okay, so now hands behind. And now to straighten our legs after this Virasana, you'll have your feet slightly apart. Now press your heels down into the floor. Okay, and then keep your heels pressed down and now press your knees down without lifting your heels. Okay, so heels are down, knees are down. Just those 4 parts, right? So often when we press the knees down, the heels get light, but keep your heels heavy. Right? Keep the heels down and press the knees down. Right, so there's a slow stretch now to the backs of the legs after doing that Virasana position. Okay, and then from here, release now and come on out. Okay, so those of you who do shoulder stand, right, we're going to take shoulder stand. And those of you who don't take shoulder stand, you're going to be taking a pose called Setu Bandha, which is bridge pose. And you'll do that with your feet at a wall. So I'm going to show both of these. The shoulder stand, folks, you'll need a chair, right? You'll need a chair. And your setup will be 3 blankets, probably a bolster and a chair. Those of you who are setting up for Setu Bandha, this bridge pose, you need a block and a bolster, no mat, right? It's best to have no mat. But I'm just going to show both of these. Right, so the shoulder stand, 3 blankets folded with the folded edges all facing the same direction. Right? And those of you who are doing Setu Bandha, I'll show that setup. Right, and if you're not a shoulder stand, I mean, if you're just beginning this practice, it's probably a good idea not to work shoulder stand immediately, because I know you're a little hesitant about it. Because, you know, we learn through our feet and our legs and our hips how to develop the strength. Soon I'll do a workshop on how to do shoulder stand and headstand, right? But inversions are really good when it's hot, right? They're good anyway, but they're really good when it's hot because part of the brain gets to reorganize its capacity to deal with heat or temperatures, actually, not just heat. So those of you setting up for shoulder stand, your setup is here. And the 3 blankets are folded, stacked on top of each other. And those of you who are doing Setu Bandha, just watch. Most of you have done this with me before, but just to go over, because I always say it's just like, it's a sequence. So the block is at the wall, and you'll sit close to the block at the very front edge of the bolster with the feet on the floor. And the idea is when you lie back, your entire spine, except for your head, should be on the bolster at first, right? And then you can let your head come back. Now I get to move myself a little further away, only a little bit, until I catch the, I'm going to call it the bra strap line, the bottom shoulder blades on the bolster, and then I just tip my whole chest area over the top, right? So the shoulders come down. Now, this is the position that you want to keep your chest in, because if the chest is this open, then the lower back gets to be long, right? If I go too far off, then the lower back gets to be a bit shorter. So this stays open, and then I have to move the bolster a little away with me on it, find the wall, find the block, stretch the foot into the block, into the wall, and then I'm here. The feet can be slightly apart. All right, so you're doing Tadasana again. And so you'll use the wall to feel your feet, okay? And the shoulders will come down. And then those of you setting up for shoulder stand, I think you can get ready. Now to come out of Setu Bandha, you'll always slide back. And that's the advantage of not having a mat, right? And shoulder stand folks, go ahead. And I think everybody knows you'll take your shoulders onto the blankets and push the chair away until the arms are straight, and then you can bring your hands towards the foot side, towards the bolster side, and roll onto the tops of your shoulders. And then you get to swing your legs over onto the chair and roll onto the shoulders again and bring your hands to your back. And then we'll begin from there, okay? Push the chair a little further away there, Sandra. I always say hold on to the shoes of the chair, the bottom legs of the chair, and then push away till your arms are straight. Yeah, okay. And then you can bring your hands to the bolster. Okay, all right. All right, now I'm gonna put your head, lift your head up. Lift your head, there we go. How's that? Does that feel okay? Now, those of you who are in doing shoulder stand, feet on the chair, there we go. Feet on the chair, halasana, right? So plow pose. If it comes too much, you just bring your feet to the floor. Okay. Now roll onto the very, very tops of your shoulders. Those of you doing shoulder stand, roll and roll and roll. And then bring your hands a little lower down your back, right? Elbows in, outer shoulders down. Now push your hands into your back. And lift your hips a little higher and lift your waist a little higher. And now tuck your toes towards your knees and stretch your heels a little further away. And that's it. Now keep the legs straight and walk your hands another couple of inches further down your back. Further down your back, that's it. And now take your legs up one at a time into shoulder stand. Right, and those of you who are working at the wall in Setu Bandha in the bridge pose, can you investigate the wall with your feet? Right, can you investigate the wall with your feet? And you don't have to keep pushing and pressing, but you might just see if you can touch. Right, now wait a second, I'm gonna go higher because I think height is better. Okay, now bring your heels up to there and go as wide as the bolster. And lower the heels down to here. There, that's it. Any different? It is, okay, good. I'm just gonna get a belt for your ankles and that will help. So now, when we're in shoulder stand, it's really tempting to spend the whole time looking at our feet because that's what we've been working on and you get a very good view of your feet here. But instead, trust them to know what they need to do, because it's very hard on our eyes, right, to keep looking upwards like this. So just let your eyes look almost towards your chest, actually. And then keep working to move your hands down as you press your elbows down, and you just hit out on that. And if it makes it worse, then don't do it. There, take it a little higher. Move your heels further away. Better, worse, same. It's okay. Okay. If it's not, you just can kick the belt off. It'll. Okay. I'm also going to lift your head up, actually. There. So trust your feet to know, even though they're not on the floor, right, that they know what to do. And you may find in your shoulder stand that the ankles are not able to stay together, which is actually designed that way, right? But you do want to keep the ball mounds of the feet as open as possible. And if you can remember when you were in that pose where you were pushing your outer ankles closer to each other in that seated Virasana, can you do that now? Can you do that now? Can you squeeze your outer ankles closer to each other? And so that this outside edges of your feet get to be very long, right? Just 1 minute more in your shoulder stand. If you, of course, you get tired, what you can do is bring one foot to the chair, other foot to the chair, readjust your arms, and then go up again. And again, those of you in the bolster, on the bolster, you know, the wall is still your teacher. Right? And Mr. Iyengar was famously heard to say that he had two teachers. One was the great founder of modern day yoga, Krishnamacharya, and the other was the wall. So sometimes, you know, actually not even sometimes, oftentimes, it's very helpful to have these non-negotiable props, like walls and floors, hard props, chairs, and so on, so that we begin to discern the differences between our two sides, because any knowledge that we can gain is helpful to figuring out all of the various aches and pains that we sometimes get. That may not only be a function of the feet, but certainly every part contributes, adds to every other part. Bless you. All right, and then from here, come on out. So you can bend your legs, those of you in Setu Bandha, and just bring your feet to the floor and slide back, right? Those of you on the bolster, feet to the floor, slide back to come on out. And those of you coming out of shoulder stand, one leg at a time onto the chair, carefully roll out, and then you can slide backwards. That's it. And the advantage of having the bolster on the floor for those of you doing the bridge pose is you can just slide it. Right? And then everybody now release and come on out. Okay. And then roll over to your side. Roll over to your side. And come on up and just open up your mat for a moment. And if you have a belt handy, I think most of you have a belt. So Emily, you're going to use the belt very similarly to what you just did, actually. You can put a blanket under your head, but you're going to take a belt and make a loop in your belt, and it's going to go over your ankles, right? So it's going to go over your ankles. And the belt will be, I'm going to say, loosely as wide as your hips, but wider is fine, particularly if you have back issues, okay? So you see I get to loop the belt over the ankles, and I have to hit out on the belt so it doesn't slide around. I come into the pose with bent legs and then organize the blanket underneath the head. And then from here, I just get to slide the heels away. And once the legs are straight, I'm just going to move the heels a little further away, right? And then just let the legs relax. All right, to come out, obviously the belt will come off very easily. You bend the legs one at a time and roll to your side. All right, so yeah, always come in with bent legs because it's much easier on your back, right? So once you've got the belt there, you bend your legs and then just roll back. Blanket underneath your head and then slide your feet further away. And then the belt is tight, right? And then you move your heels further out. So that the feet might even feel as if they're just slightly pigeon-toed, right? This one will turn. This one says, I am not turning for anything. Right now, relax, completely relax. Yeah. Huh? It's okay. All right. And then let go. Let go, let go, let go. Relax your arms and completely let go of your legs. And just let this arrangement of the belts allow for you to relax your feet completely. Slow, soft, gentle breaths. Relax your toes. Relax the ball mounds of your feet. And with the design of the belt, you may be resting slightly more to the inside edges of your heels today. And with that, completely let go of your legs. And let the release of your feet and your legs trickle, permeate, filter into the letting go of your shoulders, your arms, all the way to your neck and to the base of your skull. Bend your elbows now one at a time. And let your hands rest somewhere on your torso that gives comfort to you. And then when you bend your legs, you can just release your feet out of the belt and just let your feet rest on the floor with bent legs. And then roll over to your right side. Stay on your side just for a couple of breaths. And then roll yourself gently up to sit, lifting your head last of all. Thank you for coming today. Namaste. Thank you all for coming. I will see you soon.